One of the most intriguing characters in Naruto is Itachi Uchiha, the man that has some of the strongest and certainly the coolest genjutsu we've ever seen in the series. The man that defeated Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin, and Deidara, a powerful Akatsuki member, with ease. The man who was promoted to the position of Anbu captain at the young age of 12. And the man who slaughtered his entire clan, with the help of Obito of course, in the name of protecting his village, which I have contrasting thoughts about compared to the average Naruto fan, but we'll save that discussion for another day. Itachi's character and lore certainly makes him one of the most interesting characters we see in Naruto. However, when it comes to determining how powerful he was, it is unclear just how strong Itachi was in the series, as we never got the luxury of seeing him go all out in battle. So in this video, I'm going to be analyzing all of Itachi's feats we currently know of, and all of the dialogue that speaks to his strength, in the hopes of potentially finding out just how strong Itachi actually was in Naruto. So for starters, let's talk about how Itachi absolutely humbled Orochimaru and held his life in his hands without even breaking a sweat. There isn't much to analyze about this confrontation between Itachi and Orochimaru. Itachi literally ended it within seconds, but this does speak levels to his strength. Now, in a previous video breaking down how strong Pain was, I talked about just how strong Orochimaru was. And while I've already spoke of some of this, if you haven't seen that video, essentially the way I gauged Orochimaru's strength is by analyzing his fight with the four-tailed Naruto. Now, Orochimaru held his own against four-tailed Naruto, mind you, while being ill at the same time as his vessel was failing him. I felt it was a reasonable conclusion to assume Orochimaru could handle and hold his own against at least two more tails from Naruto if he was healthy. And now, as I am revisiting this topic, at this moment in the story, Orochimaru also had his arm sealed away by Hiruzen, and did not have the ninjutsu arsenal and prowess that he would have had at the time of his confrontation with Itachi. Therefore, I think it is also a fair assumption to believe Orochimaru, if fully healthy and without his arm sealed as well, could likely battle with an 8-tailed cloak Naruto, and potentially even a 9-tailed cloak Naruto. 9 tails might be stretching it though, but I guess it's a possibility. Now, what does this mean for Orochimaru? So there isn't really all that much that we can stack this feat against, but there is just one thing, and that is QB Cloak Naruto versus the Diva in the Preta Path of Pain. Now, here we do have to remember that the Diva Path of Pain was significantly nerfed after destroying the entirety of Konoha, and that Pain only had access to 2 of his paths rather than all 6, which greatly reduces his strength level. Nevertheless, QB Cloak Naruto, who eventually made it all the way to 9-tailed QB Cloak Naruto, was able to push a nerfed version of the Diva Path against the wall and destroy the Preta Path. Now, while this may not seem like all that much of a feat for QB Naruto, it is actually telling of just how strong this version of Naruto and Kurama were when you understand just how strong Pain was. From that same video where I broke down how strong Pain was, I came to the conclusion that he is at a much higher level than that of a high Kage level, could beat the 5 Kage alone, and is somewhere around EMS Madara level of strength. And that last point of my conclusion did have a flaw initially from my last video, as pointed out by a viewer that reminded me of a scene where Hashirama confirmed Edo Tensei Madara was not quite as strong as Final Valley Madara. Nevertheless, I still believe there is sufficient enough evidence to argue Pain is somewhere close to EMS Madara level though, as there were also some considerations around buffs that I could use for Pain strength that I didn't take into consideration when making that video. Even though I would still hesitate to call Pain EMS Madara's equal at this point. Anyways, I say Pain's power can probably be split up as something like the Diva Path, which is clearly the strongest path, harnessing about 70% of Pain's power, and the other paths constituting the final 30%. Being that Naruto fought a nerfed version of the Diva Path though, in this battle we will assume that 70% of power it holds would turn into 35. Adding on the Preta Path gives him about 7.5% more of his power output. However, this path was immediately destroyed, so I won't really count it towards this fight. So this version of pain that Kyuubi Naruto battled was at about roughly 35% of his full power output. Therefore, if a shinobi at a level that almost reaches Final Valley Madara, namely Nagato or Pain, is at simply 35% of their full power output, and they held their own against Kyuubi Naruto the same way Orochimaru should theoretically be able to hold his own against Kyuubi Cloak Naruto up to the 8 Tails, I think it is safe to assume that a healthy Orochimaru, namely Orochimaru at the time of his confrontation with Itachi, could constitute as at least 25% of Pain's full power level and up to 35% of his power level. So Orochimaru theoretically had around a quarter of the strength that Final Valley Madara had, which I would say would put him into Hokage level and maybe even above. So what does all of this mean? Well, if Orochimaru at the time of his confrontation with Itachi was sitting somewhere at Hokage level or above in terms of power, this would mean Itachi could easily corner a shinobi of that caliber, putting him at a significantly higher power level than that of Hokage. Now, while this may be a logical conclusion, there are a few considerations I want to acknowledge. One is that it still stands to reason that this version of Orochimaru I described as Hokage level eventually lost his arms to an old Hiruzen who couldn't even hope to hold his own against the Nine Tails without a Jinchuriki, which literally makes the tail be stronger. Honestly though, there is more to fighting than simply power levels. Orochimaru certainly had Hiruzen outmatched in their battle, but the third Hokage was able to use his trump card of the Reaper Death Seal to do some significant damage to Orochimaru before dying. This is just an example of no matter how much stronger you may be than someone else, you must never let your guard down. Do we think 10-year-old Konohamaru was stronger than the Pain of Path he defeated? No. He caught him off guard and hit him with a Rasengan. Doesn't mean he's stronger than him, simply means he capitalized on an advantageous situation and dealt damage to an opponent much stronger than him. Also, speaking more towards Orochimaru's fight with Hiruzen, if we really want to take into account all of the events of the original Naruto, it would be almost impossible to scale many characters in the verse. I mean, look at Tsunade in the original Naruto. She almost got packed by base Kabuto. But then in Shippuden, she was able to battle with and throw paws with Madara, and was one of the most powerful assets for the allied shinobi forces. More towards this point, look at how heavily it was originally implied in Naruto that the 4th Hokage, Minato, was the strongest Hokage, which we learn isn't even close to true once we hear of Hashirama's true power. The other consideration that I want to make is making the distinction between cornering someone and actually defeating someone. I know I said Itachi held Orochimaru's life within his hands earlier in the video, but had Itachi actually tried to kill Orochimaru and they fought, I do not think Orochimaru would go down so easily that Itachi wouldn't break a sweat. Had this turned into a real battle, my money would definitely be on Itachi, but he wouldn't have just easily manhandled him. Just because you have someone cornered does not mean you've automatically won a fight, especially against an opponent like Orochimaru, who we know is both a genius and has several different tricks up his sleeve. Now that we've determined that Itachi is at a significantly higher level of power than Hokage level, let's jump into his next upscaler, the Tosuka Blade and the Yata Mirror. So while this isn't a huge upscaler for Itachi, simply because if he used his Susanoo much at all, he'd lose his visual prowess and go blind, as we saw happen to Sasuke after he spammed his Susanoo and Mangekyo Sharingan for just a few hours. But this is still an insanely powerful trump card, easily either the strongest or the second strongest Susanoo in the verse, interchangeable with the Kamui Susanoo. The Yata Mirror allows Itachi to nullify any attack, likely with the caveat of something, because nothing in Naruto is truly impenetrable nor unflawed, just as Itachi told Kabuto, every single jutsu has a weakness. And the Tosuka Blade, which allows Itachi to seal anyone into an eternal genjutsu state, which again isn't perfect as Orochimaru clearly wasn't fully sealed when he was struck by it. However, adding this trump card to Itachi's already stacked lineup of abilities just makes him all the more powerful. And while this doesn't necessarily move him from significantly higher than Kage level to another level, it is an important consideration to make. Now, the rest of Itachi's feats that we are going to talk about is going to be more about disproving myths about them rather than using them as upscalers or downscalers. So to start off, let's talk about Itachi's genjutsu. Now, do not get it twisted. This man has some of the strongest genjutsu in the verse. I would say if I had to rank everyone's genjutsu power levels from every character we ever saw use genjutsu in the anime, Itachi would be top 4 or top 5 in the series for sure. However, Naruto fans do seem to forget that genjutsu is not only about how cool it is or how cool it looks, but also about how powerful and effective it is. There is no doubt that Itachi had the coolest genjutsu in the series. And when you think about genjutsu, Itachi is always going to be the first person that comes to mind. However, he does not have the best genjutsu feats when it comes to power. Just to go over it very quickly, Itachi effectively put pre-KCM Naruto, Kakashi, Kurenai, and 3 Tomoe Sharingan Sasuke in short genjutsus. Those Tsukuyomi, which he put Kakashi in, lasted longer, totaling 72 hours he was unconscious, and time is said to pass much slower in the world of Tsukuyomi, so he may have even been tortured for years within his mind. And this is certainly impressive, which is why I said he is literally one of the top 4 or top 5 genjutsu users in the series. However, when we compare this to the genjutsu feats of Obito, who placed the 9 tails under his control through genjutsu, and who placed the Mizukage, who was a perfect Jinchuriki by the way, under genjutsu and manipulated him for years through that same genjutsu, essentially making him his puppet so he could lead the hit and miss, Itachi's feats do not stack up to Obito's, nor do they Madara's, who also took control of the 9 tails through genjutsu. And they certainly don't hold a candle to Sasuke's use of genjutsu, when he placed every single tailed beast under genjutsu all at once and used them as a literal power source in his fight against Naruto. Now, had Itachi wanted to, I wouldn't bet against him being able to control the 9 tails as Madara and Obito did. However, there is no way to know for sure he could, as it never happened, and he does not have a genjutsu feat that is the equivalent of this. But even if you wanted to assume he could control the 9 tails through genjutsu, which I don't think is a crazy assumption, probably is a good assumption, I would certainly hesitate to assume Itachi could place a perfect Jinchuriki, which is by the way supposed to be literally the perfect counter to genjutsu, under one for years as Obito did. I would have hesitated to say Obito could do it if he hadn't actually done it. That is an insanely powerful genjutsu, and nothing Itachi has done or anyone else in the series has done at that, other than Sasuke of course, would lead me to believe they would be able to accomplish this feat. Moving on from Itachi's genjutsu, let's now talk about this panel where Obito states that Itachi would have killed him had he not been able to keep a few secrets from him. Now, if there is one thing that is held true throughout the entirety of Naruto, it is that information is a weapon. Let's put Itachi aside for a second. If Obito wasn't able to keep a few secrets from Konan, she would have killed him. Part of being strong is being able to have some trump cards in your back pocket when you need them. Overwhelming force and power will always work in defeating foes that are greatly beneath your strength. But for the ones who are closer to you in strength, information becomes more and more important. Essentially, what I'm saying is obviously it doesn't matter if someone like Ino knew everything about Obito and his power in a fight, because I mean, it's Ino. She simply is so outclassed in that matchup. Even if she knew all his secrets, she couldn't do anything to stop him. However, when we are talking about shinobi as powerful as Konan and Itachi, information becomes more and more of a powerful and important tool. Obito is cunning. He understands this. That is why he said Itachi would kill him had he not been able to keep a few secrets. If Itachi was literally just stronger and more powerful than Obito, he would have been able to kill him at any time. Itachi was smart enough not to show his entire hand just as Obito. So just as Obito has some secrets he kept from Itachi, there's no doubt the same holds true the other way around. And if Itachi really was powerful enough to just simply kill Obito whenever he wanted, if that's how you took this panel, he literally had no reason not to. He was an informant and a protector of the Leaf. There was no reason Itachi had not to eradicate what was easily the most dangerous threat in the entire world to the Leaf at that time in Obito. But there was a reason. The reason is that Itachi was not as strong as Obito. So that gives us our cap for how high we can scale Itachi. We've already determined that he is somewhere above high Kage level, and now with this information, we can determine that he's somewhere below Obito's level, which I determined in a separate video breaking down how strong Obito was. Only the highest level shinobi, namely Hashirama, Madara, Naruto, and Sasuke, were able to reach. Therefore, at best, Itachi could be the 6th strongest shinobi in the series, and he very well could be. The only other shinobi that could potentially be scaled over him would be Nagato and Minato. Other arguments you can make would be for characters we really never seen anything from before, like Hiruzen in his prime, Sakumo Hatake, who is Kakashi's father, and alive Tobirama. But we can't really accurately scale how powerful these types of characters were because we literally haven't seen them in action. Therefore, Itachi would be somewhere between the 6th and the 8th strongest shinobi in the series. I would likely put him at 7, as I think Pain is stronger than him, but really 6, 7, and 8 between Itachi, Nagato, and Minato could go any way. Now, before we wrap up, I do also want to quickly mention the moment when Itachi told Kisame that if they fought Jiraiya, they'd both die. There are two problems with taking this comment at face value. One, Itachi literally is a spy for the Leaf. Of course, he wants to avoid a direct confrontation with the Leaf if possible. And of course, he wouldn't want to murder who was at the time the Leaf's literal most powerful shinobi. And two, as I said earlier, we can't take every power implication from the original Naruto into account for Shippuden, because there are just so many inconsistencies between the two parts of the series. And honestly, this doesn't even matter all that much in this case, but I still wanted to mention it again. Anyways, do you agree with my final conclusion that Itachi is somewhere between the 6th and 8th strongest shinobi in the series? I always love to hear different perspectives, preferably grounded in actual facts and not feelings. Anyways, I appreciate it if you made it this far into the video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you all have a great day.